Well, we know we're going to get a couple of seasons of X-Men 97, so could this show turn into X-Men 2000 or beyond? Well, recently the director Jake Castanera had a little bit of an interview and kind of teased the future of the team and how the temporal timeline might actually be moving forward. Let's take a couple minutes to talk about what he said, what it means for the future of X-Men 97, and some potential storylines that could manifest from the 2000s. Now, before we do that though, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell for all the updates. We do daily Marvel and DC videos and want to be your place for all the superhero news, but we're going to bring it to you truthfully and transparently so you are in the know. Well, one of the coolest things about X-Men 97 was picking up the revival that aired 25 years ago but keeping it rooted firmly in that original era. The show being in the 1990s definitely influenced the storylines and the characters, but a lot has happened since then in the X-Men world, and it makes you wonder about the future of the show. Now, Season 2 is already confirmed, but there are tons of reports that indicate that Marvel Studios fully intends to keep this show going for as long as possible. So, could the mutants make the jump out of the 1990s and into the 2000s? Well, this was something that was talked about when discussing film interviewed supervising director Jake Castanera. Now, Jake was asked if they intended to hold on to this 90s aesthetic, and if he anticipated the show taking influences from latter comic book runs for Season 2. And Castanera had a lot to say. During the interview he said, and I quote, "We touched on that, even in Season 1 with E for Extinction, which is definitely not of the 90s run per se, but in the zeitgeist of the era that came a little later. Once so much time passes, that's pretty much late 90s. We're still dressing like that. That's how I validated it. When did the clothing styles change? That's the time we're in. We played with a little time fudging like E is for Extinction. But to your point, there are 30 plus years since the show's been over where the comics have expanded. Speaking in comic book lore, past and present, X-Men is and always should be an allegory for prejudice first and foremost. The minute you take that element away, you're automatically taking away the excellence." Now, this whole quote from Castorino does kind of frame out how they're doing this, and I tend to agree. The 80s or the 90s or even the 2000s, they're more than just the temporal decade, but the influences and culture of that time, and they're definitely pulling from that. Now, honestly, I think they're going to stay in the 1990s if I'm predicting anything. After the team managed to defeat Bastion and prevent Asteroid M from destroying the planet, some of the heroes were transported into the past and encountered a young Ensaba Nur, aka Apocalypse, and there were a ton of 90s set Apocalypse stories that could be adapted in the upcoming season. Now, with that said, I wouldn't be surprised if Season 2 at least touched on some of 2000's villains, but in that same interview, Castorina didn't mention any specific arcs, but he did mention a couple of iconic runs. During that same conversation, he said, "The X-Men have always been the underdogs. There's a reason why we're not tattered or received as well as the Avengers, but there's also a reason why they work so well, and why they have things like the Danger Room. While the Avengers might just wing that shit, the X-Men work together. They have their squabbles, they have their drama, their love triangles, though they always come back together as a unit. When using the Chris Claremont or Jim Lee runs, or even pulling from Giant Size X-Men, they are all great, but also, I think it's fair to say that enough time has passed where we can fudge a little bit of that time, bringing in the early 2000 stories." Now, this whole quote suggests to me looking to those early 2000 comics might be a great place to get some ideas of what's coming our way for Season 2. Quite honestly, Bastion surprised a lot of people, and whatever they have going on, I don't think it's going to be predictable. Now, we do know Season 2 is already, well, about halfway done, and I actually suspect the second season will probably be released around the same time in 2025. I'm totally not expecting the show this year, although I'd be happy to watch more episodes. But we do know Season 2 is well underway, a lot of the voice track has been recorded, and I'm sure after this huge success, Marvel is really laying out the resources to get the show up and running again, because despite the claims of some, the show was a huge hit and pretty beloved by fans. Obviously, we're going to cover everything X-Men 97 or 98 or 2000 on this channel, so make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and let me know what you think about these potential future storylines coming in Season 2.